My name is Edward Gray, and I am a zombie. Yeah, first thing of the morning, I get up, dust off the tombstone, and I just have a regular morning like most other people. I brush my teeth, I, make myself smell nice. I do a whole number of things. I put myself together first thing of the morning. Oh.
Yeah, what kind of, now that you're dead, what kind of maintenance do you have to go through to keep intact?
Yeah, there is a lot of maintenance. I used to try stitches to begin with, but I found staples work just as well. So say your leg falls off, we just pick it up and you staple it back on. It works, and I think that's important. Because I think you've still got an image to maintain. Like my eyesight isn't that great anymore, so I have to use contact lenses to be able to see. As my body is falling apart, my eyesight is certainly not exempt from that. And the contacts help me not only to see better, but for people to see me better, as in who I am as a person. They don't look at me and go, oh, look at him, he's a deadie. They go, oh, look at him, he's possibly a really nice guy beneath the rotting flesh. But at least I can see his eyes, and that's important. One down, one to go.
And you can't actually die as a zombie? You don't feel pain or anything like that?
Well, I feel pain in my heart. When people yell at you in the street, yeah, I hurt. No, sure, not physically, but I hurt there. I hurt emotionally. When people go, oh, look at him, he's a zombie, he's going to eat your brains, kiddies, that hurts my feelings because I'm not that sort of person.
Do you eat brains?
Well, yeah. But I don't crack them out of people's skulls, And that's the difference. I'm not going to give in to the rot. I spent the first 2 weeks of my death, staggering around, clumsily, not even knowing who I was, just going, oh, groaning and stuff. I'm not going to spend the rest of my death like that. What's the point? There's no point in that.
What other challenges do you have being out in the general public?
Well, people tend to look at you differently, when you're circulatorily deficient as I am. Or CD, I'm a CD sufferer. In that is my circular system does not work. My respiratory system only works so much in that I can talk. My nervous system does work, not too great though. I don't feel the rot, which is good. But even though my circulatory system doesn't work, it doesn't mean that my heart doesn't work either, because it does. It doesn't beat, sure, but I can still love, I can still feel, I can still know what it's like to hold a baby dove to my cheek and hear it go, and that keeps me calm sometimes.
And how do you find carnal relations now that you're a CD?
When you partake in a relationship when you're dead, you've got to think of the other person, and that is that they're not dead. And then it becomes a little bit illegal, because necrophilia is still frowned upon in our society. It's something that I'd like to work for. I'd like to change that, and I've been writing frantic letters to the Liberal government to be able to rectify that. The Greens, seem to be on our side a little bit, but there's a core group of people that are into necrophilia, and as soon as that's legalised, maybe I might get a bit more action from the female front, but things change,
Have you got any women interested in you at the moment, perhaps?
No, there's no women interested in me, right now.
Would you be able to have a sexual relationship with a partner, or would that be
it works
possible?
if that's what you're saying.
I was
No, I realise the connotations. Oh, look at him. He's riddled with maggots. He's rotted. You know, can he get? Well, I'll tell you something. It's
in the interest of science, purely. I'm just curious.
No, I get that. You know, and in interest in science, that's quite the reverse. You know, I am the human Viagra. It's called rigor mortis. Yay me. It's not fun, you know, walking around constantly, 24 hours, 7 days a week with a hard one down your trousers.
Do you have trouble making friends now that you're a zombie? And new relationships?
Yeah, look, to be honest, I had a lot of trouble with that, you know, while I was living.
While you were alive, you mean?
Yeah, look, I've always had trouble with people. You know, they've never got me. They've never understood me and stuff. I've always been a little bit unique, you know, which is not great, not the greatest thing in the world to be, you know, ridiculed and pointed out that you're different. And things certainly haven't changed now that I'm dead. In fact, things I feel has gotten a lot worse since I've been dead. You know, people yelling at me in the street, and, you know, just generally people treating you like you're second rate just because you're not breathing. You know, I think it's a really harsh way to treat anyone. Well, just because they're dead and buried, and, you know, they've come back from that, you know, they think that they're better. You know, when you look at it logically, I'm further along the evolutionary chain than them. You know, they haven't even died yet. I've done that. Know many other people who have died? Oh, sure, the world's full of dead people, but not many of them, you know, give an interview.